Hi, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Indira, and today I'm joined by English Intercounties and English Schools 2024 National Cross Country Champion and 2024 Under 18 European bronze medalist 3,000 meters runner up, Olivia Forrest. Olivia is a phenomenal athlete, and in this episode, she talks through her journey from being a good athlete to an exceptional athlete and what it's like being a junior athlete. In this episode, she shares how going through puberty and the changes that she's experienced has impacted her running and what she's doing to keep a level mindset. Lots of insight in this episode, including around training, and Olivia shares a lot on how important it's been for her having her dad as her coach and also the importance of team and how that's played a role in her running journey. She also shares the story behind those classic pink and green socks, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Okay, lots of insight to learn from in this episode, and it's definitely great to see younger athletes having that long-term and healthy approach to running. Okay, as always, if you've been enjoying the podcast, please be sure to give it a rating as it helps to give credibility to the podcast so I can keep bringing you guys the guests you want to hear from. And episodes are now also available on Spotify and YouTube for video format. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in some of that. Okay, let's get into the episode. Hi, Olivia. How are you? And welcome to the podcast.
I'm good, thanks. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, great to have you on. Been a bit of a long time coming, but it's great to finally have you here. And how's your morning been today?
It's been all right. I went out for a training session, so that was nice.
Yeah, what type of session was it? Rogue Sunday?
Um, it was like a long hills session, so that was really helpful.
Yeah, was it enjoyable at the time or more of a enjoyable after?
Not sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hills, a bit of a hate them, love them. Normally something you're a fan of?
I'm actually right with hills. I quite like hills. I think they really like you can tell who enjoys them and you can tell who the good runners are by the hills. And I like how challenging they are. Hill sessions are definitely some of my favorite sessions.
Nice, that's good to hear. And yeah, hill litmus test then that can definitely be applied. And so, can you briefly introduce yourself as an athlete for anyone who doesn't already know you?
I'm Olivia Forrest. I've been running since 2015. I run for Brentwood Beagles and I do mostly middle and long distance running, but I do triathlon as well, sometimes on the side.
Well, an increasing number of triathletes seem to be kind of crossing the line between running triathlons, so that's pretty cool to hear. And a couple of questions from me before we dive into things. What's the best piece of advice you've received and why?
I think probably just to enjoy it, like enjoy what you do and don't worry about other people because you can only change your outcomes and not other people's. It's your career and you can't really affect what they do.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And I think that's such a kind of mature mindset to have already and such an important point to make as well. You know, the only person you can control is you, and what those around you do kind of is independent to you. And I like how you use the word career there as well. So I assume that you've got kind of long-term goals and ambitions within the sport.
Yeah, I hope to go to the Olympics, and I hope to compete on that level, on a world class level, um, in the future. But I am a realist, and in the end, I just want to enjoy it. And I know that
Yeah.
it'll be difficult, but I am. It'll take a lot of hard work, but I am ready to do that.
I love that. And I think it's great to, have those aims, have those ambitions. And yeah, like you say, have a kind of, yeah, acknowledgement that enjoyment's important and be ready to work for it. And you've got just as much chance as anybody else, really. And in terms of kind of a piece of advice you would give, would you say anything different or are they kind of the same?
I think it's the same. I think I would say enjoy it because when I was younger, I wasn't the best, but um, I would say I would have given that advice to myself looking back. I would say enjoy it and don't do it if you're not getting anything out of it
Mm.
because there's always something you can get out of it. And I
Yeah.
think there's always a way of enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely some very wise words again, for sure. And for you, what would you say are three things that are essential to your happiness?
I think being around people who I know and who are my friends and family, I think that that's really important. And I think also just being able to do what you love and being able to do things that you are comfortable with and being able to as well, um, I think like feel comfortable in a space and just be yourself. I think that's important too.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I think, being able to feel able to be yourself and be yourself are so important in kind of any aspect of life, but definitely within sport, having that freedom to be you and fully embrace everything. And you talk about it, it being something you love doing or, that being important to you. For you, what is it about running that you love?
I think um, just how I love going and traveling to places. That's one of the main things for me. I love going to new places and going to new tracks and meeting new people as well from different countries. And I also just love the atmosphere of a race. Even if it's not a team race, if it's an individual race, it's still so enjoyable and just that atmosphere and friendliness and the team. And as well, I love the challenge of working through long-term plans because I think that's important of resilience and it's important to make the gains that I'm chasing because I think that you need that long-term perseverance to really because it develops you as a person, not just as an athlete.
Yeah, definitely. Again, some great stuff there. And for sure, I think a lot of stuff we can sort of talk a bit more about there, kind of around your experiences. It's great you mentioned kind of atmosphere and team. And I think it seems like you've got quite a good team environment and team dynamic. And that's something that not everyone has, especially as kind of a girl within sport or within running at least. So I think that's kind of a unique angle that you've got. And I think it's great that you recognize already the importance of having that long-term approach to things and yeah, being patient sometimes. And it sounds like maybe you've got some experience with having to wait a bit or ride out some ups and downs. So if we kind of take stuff back to the start, then, you've had, or at least you on Power of 10, you had 3 years as an under 11. It seems you got in quite early. Do you want to walk us through kind of what got you into running?
Okay, so I obviously said that I started in 2015. My family, they were very big runners, and my dad, he runs. My granddad, he used to run as well, and he still does ultra marathons.
Wow.
He did one a couple of years ago, actually. Um, and in 2015, I did my first park run, but I didn't finish it because I fell over and hurt my knee. But from then, I just kept doing more park runs, and um, I kind of I got spotted by an athletics club. But between then, I was always going out and running with my parents, with my sister. It was always a very big thing in our family.
Yeah. No, that's really cool to hear. And I think, we're seeing increasingly how parkruns brought so much of kind of the current talent into the sport. And it's always great to have that family support. And you talk about having a sister who runs. Does she still kind of run and do you run together?
Yeah, she still runs with me. Um, she she's still like it's really enjoyable. We sometimes do runs together, and we both train together at the club.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my dad it has always been a running coach as well, so he's always been able to be there to push us and help us.
Wow, no, that's quite cool. And again, I guess a bit different to maybe what some people experience. It sounds like you've got kind of a whole family approach there. And I think that'll be really interesting to talk about as well. For you, what's been the biggest highlight running wise so far?
I think definitely the Euro under 18s. That whole process of the start of the season, we sat down and we talked about our goals, me and my dad, and we we said this is what we want to do. We want to go to the Europeans, and obviously it was gonna be hard. I was one of the youngest, and I was only a few days older than the qualifying. You had to be end of December, and I was. So and that whole process of going out to races and trying to get PBs and trying to get the time because obviously you never know really. You like what everyone else in Europe is doing, because obviously you had to get the qualifying time, but you also had to be ranked in a specific place. And it was really hard to find and handpick the events that you needed to go to, because they had to be specific World Athletics qualifying level two. And also making sure that you performed when you were at those events, that was really tricky. And so when I did get selected, that it was just relief, and it kind of felt like the hard work had really paid off. It felt like it actually meant something. And just the whole experience of the Euro Under 18s, getting that kit, meeting everyone, like traveling together as a team, genuinely, I really loved it so much, and it really made me know, like I knew from that moment that that is what I wanted to do. It gave me like it gave me taste of my goals and what I wanted to do in the future, and it kind of inspired me even more, and so I can keep going on that track. And the whole experience, it just felt so incredible when I was there, and I was so glad that I got to do it. And in the end, I got a bronze medal, so I was so pleased with that, and I was
Yeah.
so proud of all my hard work as well.
Yeah, and absolutely you should be. And, bronze medal's a phenomenal achievement. And yeah, it sounds like quite a process there. And it's great that you're able to, I guess, go on that journey and to have it have a happy ending. When you talk about chasing that qualifying time, chasing that ranking, what was the time required and what was the ranking you needed?
I needed to get 9:35 for 3K, and I that was my event. I was focusing on that because I felt strongest in that. We'd done a lot of training, so that's helpful. And then you also had to be like top eight, I think, in Europe,
Okay.
and or I think yeah, I think top eight. I think,
Yeah. Wow.
but
So
yeah.
easy stuff then.
Obviously, it was difficult because I'm one of the youngest and racing people 2 years older than me from all over Europe. That like I've never really raced that far internationally before, only within like SIAB and stuff. So it was
Yeah.
definitely tough.
Yeah. And did you find it very different being at such a major championship and racing girls a lot older?
Um, yeah, I think so. I but I didn't really notice as well.
Mm.
Like I didn't really think about it as much. I was always one of the fastest going into it, so I always had it in my head that I was going to be at the front of the field. So I think that really pushed me along. It didn't even give me a chance to think that I was going to fail. Um, but it was like knowing that I was there with people a lot older than me. It also made me feel like it made me feel professional. It made me feel like I deserved to be there and I was doing well for being there. It made me
Yeah.
feel really good, I think.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's good not to sort of think too much about things. And you have to have that belief in yourself and confidence going into a race. And I guess prior to that, you talk about kind of making sure that you do perform and deliver in certain races. For you, how do you manage then the pressure and how does that differ for you in sort of say a qualifying situation versus maybe a championship? Because of course, you've won national titles as well.
I think that just staying grounded, I think I get a lot of support from the people around me, and that is really helpful. Um, and it's quite clear that like that, there's not pressure, it's just support mostly. And whilst I do have expectations of myself, because I want to do what I want to be in the highest situation possible, but I think just having fun as well, like going thinking, yeah, I can do this, and then getting to that place and keeping positive as well, because that's important, and not thinking about the things that can go wrong, like positive visualization, self-talk, and that's really important. And yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Mindset is such a powerful tool, and increasingly it's coming to the forefront as something that is so important. And it sounds like you've got quite a good awareness or knowledge of kind of maybe mental techniques and preparation. Is that something you've kind of looked into or self kind of come to that realization yourself?
I think yes, I have looked into that. Actually I think mentality is one of the things I struggle with the most. There is a lot of positive, like I get a lot of support and positivity from everyone around me, and I think it is important to be positive,
Mm.
but um there's obviously lots of barriers, like um lots of things come up. I think a lot of people underestimate how much this sport is mental and how much is physical, because if you even if you have the physicality, the mentality, you like need that as well. And for me, I think it's just about developing that more.
Yeah.
I think I just have a naturally um I think my mindset could be better, but I think by inspiring other people, like that's helpful as well. And I spend time working on the mindset as well because I think that's so important.
For sure. And Phoebe Gill said very similar stuff when she came on the podcast, had a couple of times. So yeah, check that out if you're interested. But for sure, she was emphasizing how importantly she values mindset as well. And yeah, I think that's interesting, kind of seeing it in a lot of the top talent of the younger generation now having that, I guess, view on things. And you talk about that being something that maybe you struggle with a bit more and that you're working on. In what ways are you kind of working on it, and what in particular do you think you find hardest kind of mindset wise? Because it is a difficult thing.
Yeah, it is hard sometimes. I think that especially when you're training in in the winter when it's cold and miserable and rainy, it's definitely hard. But like discussing it with people and kind of sharing that pain with people around you, and it kind of makes you realize that everyone's going through it and that is not just you. And you get a solid steer from people around you, and it's really helpful. I think talking to other people and discussing it with them, that's important, and learning about it as well and how others think.
Yeah, definitely. And when you say they're kind of learning about it and maybe how others think, does that suggest that maybe you've spoke with someone and they've given you a new perspective, or you've kind of found another way of thinking from conversations with maybe your teammates?
It just helps reinforce my own perspective. I think everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and for other people, mentality might not be that weakness. So they bring a lot of new stuff to the table. Like it's not the be all and end all, and that's what they suggest. And it's I do learn new things to help with my mindset, but it's my own approach. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good to hear. And definitely it is one of those things that's a very individual journey. And, your mind, your kind of way of thinking, you've got to make things work for you. And I guess then you also mentioned sharing the pain and, that challenge of getting out when it's dark, when it's cold. I think a lot of people who run or do sport or even have to leave the house or get out of bed in the morning can relate to that struggle. How's the team dynamic for you? How's that shaped you in your journey so far?
It's been really good. Um, we have a lot of there's a lot of girls my age, like at my club, and I think that that's really helpful because it feels like we're really friendly with each other, and we know each other really well. But as well, like everyone on the team is just everyone has the same goal. Everyone's collaborating and everyone's supporting each other to get to that goal. And it's nice to have that competitiveness in there. But also having those people there is what makes you want to turn up. It's what makes you want to continue as well. Because obviously you can be by yourself, but like and obviously you can do it for yourself. But if you know that there's lots of people around you who are believing in you and who want that as well, it's about being a role model for them as well. And like that group thinking that really strengthens everyone's perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk there about there being lots of girls, and that's definitely not something that you commonly hear. So that's great. And I guess, firstly, then, what do you think has enabled there to be an environment or situation where there's so many girls who are kind of keeping on showing up, enjoying it, engaged with the sport?
There's a lot of support from the coaches at my clubs and parents as well. They're really supportive, and I think um, there's obviously a lot of like we've got a lot of success with the girls this year um, on track and in cross country. So it kind of suggests that well they can get to that level too. It shows that their goals are actually achievable, um, and it shows that they can do that, and they don't have to think that they can't because we've got evidence, and we have equal success with our boys as well. It's not just that focus, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think for girls especially, it's obviously tough when you get older, but I think seeing those people above you who are older than you
Mm.
Like for me, I'm one of the oldest in my group, like for girls. So I think being a role model for other people, like it's important for me to stay in it. And obviously I'm not leaving, but to to be there for them as well as being there for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's
that's
really important.
yeah, it seems that that really comes out as something that is quite important to you, that I guess responsibility that you've taken on to be a role model and be there for the younger girls. Is that because there's someone who's been a role model to you, or is that just kind of your natural love and personality, or love for the sport and personality to kind of coming through in that respect?
I think it's a mix of both. I think there's definitely I've got a lot of role models in athletics, lots of people who continue and persevere. Like for instance, Jasmine Paris, she obviously did the Buckley marathons, and that's really important. But more locally, like for me, to be that role model, I want to take it seriously, and it's really important to me. Like for my values, I think it's really important to stay positive for everyone else, even when I'm finding it hard, so that they know that that's like that they can do that too. And I think like helping out and being a leader is really important, and it's
That's
something that I value.
That's really great to hear, and it's lovely that you've got that mentality. And I'm sure there's so many people who will look up to you and will be able to, yeah, feel inspired and keep enjoying it from seeing and watching your journey there. And I guess as well, you talk about that supportive environment. Is there anything in particular that stands out to you that you think makes for such a supportive club environment?
I think we just have a lot of I think everyone at the club wants it for everybody,
Mm.
and everybody um, f- has that same goal and knows that they want to be there for that reason. Um, my parents actually founded the club and created it, so that certainly helps. So a lot of the people who have helped us are people we know and we've known for years, and that is really helpful. But everyone who joins, everyone wants to help out in their own way. Everyone wants to help, even if obviously they're not your child, but everyone is really supportive.
That's really good. And I guess it shows as well how important it is to have those close relationships within the club environment. And you've spoken a few times now about kind of that goal or that collective aim. Is there anything in particular that everyone is aiming for? You know, what is this particular goal? And also, how do you feel that it works effectively having that balance between kind of being supportive versus being competitive amongst kind of teammates?
I think they vary based on the person, but I think everyone just wants to be the best they can and everyone wants to enjoy it, because not everyone is there for the same reason. Some people are there because they want to be around, some people are there because they want it to complement their other sports, like across the whole club, I mean. But um, having I think everyone being there and the competitiveness compared to the support, there is a good mix of it, and it's a very healthy mix. I think the competitiveness also is support in itself, because it makes you think, right, I want to be the best I can so that I can be against these people. And yeah, I think it's really important.
That's a great way of phrasing it, you know, being the best you can so that you can be against these people. So I guess that shows that, you know, you view each other with a lot of respect for kind of who everyone is as an athlete, and that's such a lovely way to have things. And I suppose now turning it back on to kind of your journey on a more personal level, you know, you spoke about when you started out, you weren't necessarily kind of excelling as you are or as you have gone on to do now. What was that journey like building up? You know, what was kind of the transition from being a good runner to an exceptional runner like?
So obviously when I was under 11, I wasn't doing anything properly. I was mostly just running for fun and all that. But by the time I actually joined a club, it was mainly I think it was COVID at that point. So um, it was hard to train, and obviously a lot of people dropped out in lockdown and that sort of stuff. Um, and my dad definitely supported during lockdown, because when I joined that club, I wasn't coached by my dad. So um, when it came to lockdown, I started to be coached by him, and that was really good. After lockdown, I didn't get coached by him anymore, but then my sister did, and as an under 13, my sister was beating me everywhere. I was great cross country and I really enjoyed it, and I was beating her there, but on the track I just couldn't seem to get my paces right. I'd always run everything at the same pace, no matter how far it was. So um, I'd always be beaten, and then by the time I actually started getting coached by my dad, that's I think when things changed, and that was when I actually started getting my first Essex first actually doing well and being able to differentiate between the different distances, and that's when I started transitioning from being good to great. And since then, I've kind of been on the up, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And sometimes it can be really effective to have a family member, I guess, coaching, someone who knows you really well. And I guess just to provide a bit of context, as a first year under 13, you were a kind of 5:57, 1,500 meter runner, 2:55, 800 meter runner. But, first year under 15, you were placing top 50 at kind of national championships, getting those times down. And then moving on from that, you kind of really began to start getting up there at the top of national championships and taking national titles and taking UK number 1 spots on the ranking lists. Can you talk us through what you think makes it so effective being coached by your dad?
I think the fact that it's integrated into my whole lifestyle, like obviously there is a clear line between athlete and like being myself, but um I think like the fact that we can like it's always there, the support is always there if I need it, means that like it's kind of more accessible, and but also it's it's helpful to have that support whenever I need it and integrated into everything I do.
Yeah.
It means that if I need something, he's always there, and there's always support on one side and coaching on the other. I think that's really important, and I'm glad that I have that opportunity.
Yeah, and no, that's really good. And you talk there about that line between being an athlete and I guess, yeah, on a more personal level, just having that normal relationship. For you, how do you manage that and how do you, I guess, keep things at a balance that feels right for you?
Um, I think just like learning from what we're saying,
Mm.
and being able to have that line, having the support and the coaching, but being able as well to really like have moments outside of it and making space for non-athletics related activities as well. Because
Yeah.
I think that's so important. It's just you remember that he's your dad as well.
Yeah, no,
I think
that's
that's really
great.
important. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And it's great how you have, I guess, that approach of making sure you make that time specifically to do other things. And can you think of an example then, or give us an example of where maybe the fact that you're coached by your dad has been of benefit to you, maybe something more within your lifestyle side of things?
Yeah, I think especially recently we've been experimenting with new foods and new like nutrition options. And I think obviously if my dad wasn't my coach, we'd still be able to do that. But actually being able to be there and observing it, it makes it more tailored to what I need and more adaptable. Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. And that sounds quite fun there, being able to kind of try things about and adjust things accordingly, a bit like a kind of experiment, but a continuous one.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
And is nutrition something that you kind of come to look at more recently then?
Yeah, um so this season especially, it's obviously hasn't been as successful as my last season. Last season I was on a high. I was
Yeah.
in my own little bubble, just winning everything, and that was really great and genuinely um really good. We sat down about the goals and we got the results we wanted, and that was great. But at the end of last
I'm
season, we
just
recognised.
gonna stop you there and quickly provide a bit of context to kind of bring the listeners up to speed. So yeah, that was your first year under 17. You won inter-counties, you won the national cross-country championships, you're taking UK number 1 spots, you were setting PBs across all the distances, 9:21 in the 3,000, 16:34 in the 5K, 4:25 and the 1500. These are quick times.
Yeah, so obviously, as you just explained, we got all those times, and a lot of those things were unexpected. And it was just about going out there. For instance, when I won English schools, I couldn't believe it because I was obviously a first year. But at the end of last season, around like at the end of August, September, I recognised that I was in a bit of a growth spurt, and that like I had my body, and that means my body has changed, and that meant we had to adapt and do more strength work and like learn to run with my new body because obviously, like being the age I am, that's what's going to happen. And obviously, that's the reason why a lot of people drop out because they see that they're not doing as well and they don't think they're going to be able to get back. But I think having that support from my coach, it meant that so we changed paths of cross training to incorporate more threshold work. So as I developed the capacity to deal with it, and I think it's important to build that effective foundation now because um, I'm very philosophical that I can't win every race where I'm going through these changes, and I'd rather have to build these foundation now than have to not be great when I'm older because in the long term I want to be the best when I'm older. And I think the foundation now means that it's more key for my development. And whilst it's disappointing that obviously last season was such a high and this season has been far from that, I think it's so important that it's now and not later on.
Yeah,
And I'm
absolutely.
glad that I'm glad that we've actually been able to kind of figure it out and work through it.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. And, I think it shows real promise and hope kind of for the sport in general, because like you say, these were previously the things that maybe some top talent was being lost to, or a lot of girls were being lost from the sport. And yeah, it definitely is such a difficult thing. And I can't imagine kind of the difference between, all those championship titles, great races, Europeans, all of that. And then, yeah, you kind of hit around sort of puberty, or, under 17 years for girls is not always great in that respect. But it's good that you've got that knowledge and awareness of how things are
I
changing.
mean, if a bad season is like England vests and podiums, then and if that's bad for me, then that's still great. Like that, I've still been able to do that, and I still consider this like a not the best season. So that's actually great.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And that is the thing, you've got to kind of hold on to stuff within the context of the situation you find yourself. And before we kind of move on to things, maybe more general reflections, just talking about, training as an athlete at a high level, having high levels of success, balancing life, education, and training. This is such a relevant topic that affects so many people. And I'm sure a lot of people listening might be a similar age to yourself, or going through a similar situation, or know someone who's going through a similar situation. Can you talk us through, when you say sort of changes, feeling different in your body, can you talk us through the picture of what it's like to be in that moment?
I think just not having the strength and the speed. I think feeling like you could really go last season, whereas sometimes like not being able to hit the goals you want in training and in racing. I think feeling like a bit like you had such high hopes and then not being able to achieve them, even though you feel like you're putting the same amount of effort in. I think, and you just got to keep going. You just got to like persevere through it because you know that you are building back stronger. You know that it will all like work out in the end and pay off. And it will take time, but you just need to you need to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great you mentioned there about putting in the same level of effort and things just not going as fast as they used to be, or kind of it being very out of the blue and a bit random. And are there any other, I guess, not signs and symptoms because it's not a condition, but things that maybe someone who's listening, who's going through something similar, but maybe doesn't realize, might be able to identify with, in terms of other things that, you think are a result of growth?
I think yeah, just like probably like with the menstrual cycle, like energy levels definitely. And I think that's definitely something that has affected me.
Mm.
I think um, just learning about the changes and understanding how it affects you, because that has been really important too. Because especially with energy levels, like it can happen at any point. So it's very important. That's definitely something to notice, and it has happened to me before. Like with the energy levels, sometimes before races, I just feel completely crashed out. It's like, well, what I've done all this stuff, I'm on a high, so why would that happen? And it definitely affects me, and I've had to get used to that feeling. And I think it's important for others to recognize that and know that that's the reason why.
Yeah, I love how you use the term energy levels there because it really definitely does have that ability, the menstrual cycle, to just zap you for no reason. And like you say there, you know you're on a high or you've put in all the work and it's like, hang on a minute, how come you can come along and just throw things off? And hopefully with time and research, that's something that maybe can be minimized a bit. But can you expand a bit more then on specifically maybe times of the month you found more challenging and if you've found any ways so far that have been able to help with that?
I think just not having like, and not specifically, but like I've kind of always been able to deal with it in a way, and I do track my cycle and make sure I know what's happening, but just being able to know like know that that's why, and know that, for instance, if you don't perform as well in a race or perform as well as you want in training, in a race, whatever, then knowing that's why, and knowing that it's not something to be worried about, and knowing that that is just natural and that is good. It's good that that's happening because it shows that you're like you're growing, and that's important, and it's part of my um appreciation. So,
Yeah.
and for the changes that are happening, it makes me know that it's going to be fine. Like this is healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. No, it's kind of an empowering thing in some respects. It is. It's knowing that things are healthy, things are how they should be, and everything's yeah, everything's good. I suppose then as well, it sounds like you've got this good awareness, good understanding, and good mindset around being a female athlete and the challenges that can come along with that, especially at this age. Where did that knowledge come from, and how do you have the confidence already to know that that's absolutely the right approach to have?
The people around me, definitely. Like I get a lot of education from my coach and my training group, like within that, but also social media has been really helpful with it, especially like with many sources. Like obviously this podcast is really important and it's been really helpful. Like there's a lot of helpful things mentioned, but as well like just anything on social media that can really help athletes and has has actually like developed my understanding, and just seeing people who've gone through it before and realizing their experiences because they share them, that's really helpful.
Yeah, no, well, that's great to hear. And for sure, it's brilliant how social media and, yeah, I guess, I don't know, modern technology can be so beneficial. And are there any accounts in particular that you'd recommend to anyone who's, looking to find more knowledge or ones that you found useful to yourself?
I think I think everyone has their own experiences and everyone is different. I think just finding a reliable source and finding someone who you can relate with a bit more. For instance, I guess for me, like Jess Jard is really helpful. Um, and I think, but everyone has their own experiences. So finding that one, like finding many different accounts that cover all of it,
Mm.
that's helpful. Like
Yeah,
people who are prepared and people who want to talk about that sort of stuff.
yeah. I
It's
think
really
it's
helpful.
it's great you highlight the importance of individuality there. And for you, what is it about Jess Judd that makes her someone who's so valuable to yourself?
She's prepared to talk about the menstrual cycle, and she's not afraid to like say stuff about it. And I think that's really important. And it's she's not afraid to talk about the clear impact it has on her.
Yeah.
And I that's like really inspirational, I think.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And I guess then to talk around your training, what's that like for you? Talk us through a typical training week and maybe some of your reflections around what are the most important parts of it.
Okay, so I cross train Monday through Friday, um, and then sometimes on the weekends. I do mostly cycling, but I do swim on a Tuesday and sometimes at the weekends during the holidays. So that's been really helpful, and that's mostly threshold work. I value cross training a lot. It's very important. Monday, I would do an easy run or I would do a threshold session just because like it's important to get it out of the way earlier in the week. So if I have a race at the weekend, I'll probably do a threshold or something on a Monday. Um, Tuesday, I have a track session and it's mainly speed based, so it'll be shorter reps and that's obviously helpful for speed. Wednesday, I usually do strength and conditioning, and recently, especially, we've been incorporating more weights this year, but at manageable levels, um, and just making sure that every area is targeted. So arms, legs, core, like not purposely leaving anything out. Thursday, track again. Um, it's longer, more speed endurance based.
Mhm.
So longer reps and specific endurance. Friday is normally a rest day, especially when racing at the weekend. Saturday, normally racing or hills. Um, and then Sunday, if I've raced the day before, it'll be a double threshold. So because I think that's something my coach really values. I think like obviously my dad he like uses a lot of data to um train me. Has an amazing data driven coaching platform,
Oh,
and I think I think he really looks into it a lot. But yeah, so if I have a race on the Saturday, I'll do a threshold or so normally hills or something on the Sunday, but something hard, not something easy. But if I'm not racing, I would have done the hills on the Saturday, and then I'll do like a an easy run or a steady or a long run on the Sunday.
no, that's really interesting.
And
And
strength and conditioning. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, such an important one there. And yeah, it's interesting that you do kind of a race and then also a hard effort on the Sunday. And yeah, taking a data-driven approach, I think that's something that's been shown to be very effective for a lot of athletes. And is there any data in particular then that you monitor during sessions? And what's your kind of awareness of, I don't know, particular data points?
Like biomechanical data. Um, I obviously don't have as much understanding as my dad does, but he does take time to educate me in some of that as well, especially when it's important to my development, and especially when I need to be aware of it because there's something off or something like that. Like I think it's very important that I know about it too. But
Yeah.
we also do HRV, heart rate data, and the other day actually we did lactate testing at the track, and that was really valuable. And we got some good data from that. And it was my first time, and I'm a bit scared of needles, but I it was actually all right. It was really helpful, and to get that data, and it just means that I can progress more in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, needles are definitely, I don't know, I don't think anyone particularly loves them, but sometimes the benefits can be outweighed by the initial harms, let's say. And I think it's interesting as well how you mentioned biomechanical data. What does that look like? And are there any particular things you've been able to get from that that you've been able to use to benefit your running?
I think um, cadence, vertical height, and that sort of stuff, like turnover, is obviously really important, especially when you are developing that speed and that endurance. You need to have it more specific. Stride length, vertical oscillations, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's really cool to hear. And I suppose then as well for you, just kind of generally in terms of it sounds like you've got a good grasp on having a particular goal, building up to a particular race. Do you want to walk us through maybe some of your big achievements from last year and what the process of maybe targeting those particular races was like and also maybe some standout performances that meant the most to you?
So at the start of last year in the cross country in 2023, we just kind of wanted to have fun and see what I can do. And when I won Cardiff by a lot, I was really shocked and I thought I actually realised how far I could go. And that meant just kind of I kept going with it. And I think all my performances then, they all had their own thing that I learnt from them. And because obviously every course was different,
Mhm.
like, and every style was different because a lot of the time every race was different. And like a lot of the time the people I was racing was different, but also the way the race played out and like learning about those tactics as well. And that's another reason why I do more races. I think it's important to learn about the tactics and I do enjoy racing a lot. But I think some standout performances were definitely like winning the English schools and winning SIAB cross country because I was obviously the younger year then in the age group. And whilst I'd known I had a great season before that, I'd never actually had a chance to race against the older age group in that year. So we knew I could do well, but we didn't know like, how well I was going to do. So I think the process going into that, we didn't really have expectations, but obviously I'd done well. We just had hopes, and I had a lot of support from everyone around me to encourage me that I could really do well in that. And I was really pleased that I was able to win those races as well, even when it seemed less possible. And I was really pleased with my performance against those athletes because it was tough.
Yeah, and I mean, they're great performances. And I love that phrasing there, hopes, not expectations. I think that's a lovely approach to have to things. And for you, have you got a sort of go-to celebration for these big achievements?
I think just I think obviously a lot of the time like it's quite far away, so there's not a lot of time for a celebration because by the time you get home, you're just tired and can't really do anything. But definitely like a cheap meal, going out somewhere you like with your family, yeah, something like that. It's really important.
Nice. And you've got a particular favorite in that respect?
Um, I don't know. I like pizza.
Nice. Yeah, can't go wrong with that. Definitely a solid classic for sure. I suppose then for you, just general reflections overall before we kind of close things off. What would you say is your greatest strength and your greatest weakness as an athlete?
I think my greatest strength is probably my form. I've had a lot of training over the years for that, and I think that's really important. And I'm really glad that that's something I have a strength in, something I can, something I have already mastered in a way. Obviously, there's always improvements you can make, but knowing that I'm in a good place with that, that's really important. And I'm glad to have had the support from my coach. I think my greatest weakness, as I said earlier, is probably mentality. I have been getting a lot of support around that, but I think I do have like I'm not always the most positive person, despite like how I might come across to other people. Sometimes I do like the nerves and pressure do really get to me, but mostly from myself and not from other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, it's a hard thing to manage, and I think, if you care about something, it's going to mean something to you. You're going to have pressure that's going to be there, and it's definitely something that's a very normal reaction, but it's hard to balance the two sides of the coin in that respect. I guess for you then, on that note of sort of success in general, how have you found it's impacted you as a person? And you're still young, so having these kind of levels of success, do you feel it's kind of been more of a benefit to you overall?
I've definitely learned a lot from it.
Mm.
Like having the resilience and being able to adapt my goals. And I feel like I've grown more as a person because I've been able to get those attributes from running and being able to develop that resilience and perseverance and when it's tough. And I really see the personal growth that I'm going through because of everything that running has taught me and everything I've been through with running
Yeah,
as a person.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of is like a mini metaphor for life, and it does allow you to almost jump through the phases a bit quicker. And if you commit to having that introspective view around it, you really can gain a lot. You mentioned personal growth, you've mentioned it a couple of times before. Is there anything in particular that you can pinpoint or that you can share around for you what's, given you the most growth or been the most challenging time?
I think definitely like whenever I haven't performed as well as I wanted to, I think this season just being able to continue when it gets hard and analyzing performances and learning more and understanding when where you went wrong and what you can improve. And I think that's definitely a skill that you need to have, like self critique in a way, but also being able to be proud of yourself even when it goes wrong. I think you always need to have that, and I think that's a really good skill, especially like being reflective.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of great points there, and especially about being proud of yourself. I think a lot of athletes are quick to move on to the next thing or pretty good at seeing where they went wrong or where they can improve. But sometimes it's the being in the moment that can get a little bit sidelined or left behind. For you then, in the sort of immediate, maybe say the next year, what's the number one goal or the thing that you're most hoping to get from running?
I think being able to adapt to the changes, as I talked about earlier, being able to actually experience the benefit of all the work I'm putting in now and have the high and um, like learning to adapt more to racing. I think as well, obviously I want to go to big events. I want to go, for instance, the Euro Under 20s or the Commonwealth Youth Games. But um I think as long as I'm still enjoying it and as long as I'm learning more about myself and being able to adapt to those changes and improve, and show that all the hard work I've been putting in whilst my body has been changing is paying off, then I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully those are things that will come true for you. And when you talk about changes and adapting there, have you got a specific example you can give of one maybe?
I think um probably just this whole season,
Yeah.
like being able to um like reflect on what the problem is and incorporate those reflections into the next thing. Um I think yeah, that's probably it. And just knowing that my hard work will pay off in the end.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important to, I guess, yeah, keep that self-belief, but it definitely is hard. And especially when, you maybe see people who you used to be easily kind of going past, or maybe you're not hitting those times, it definitely is mentally difficult to deal with. Have you got one sort of tip or thing that you found's been most effective in kind of rationalizing it in those times where you felt a bit down, which would, inevitably be a natural response?
I think talking it through is really important and knowing that it's not the be all and end all and knowing that like you can go through that and it still not be the worst thing ever. And like obviously two minds are better than one. Having reflection from outside and support is really important. And just knowing that that's not who you are. Just because that one race, that's not you forever. That's um that's not you forever. That's like you can build from that and that's like you're gonna be good in the future just because you didn't do well in that one race doesn't mean that's gonna be all the races forever.
Absolutely, some very wise words there. And if we move on to some quicker fire closeout questions now, what would you say as a student and an athlete? What are your top three tips for balancing the two?
Just making sure that they that you don't stress too much about either of them and making time for myself in between that too. Just being able to have that relaxation, not being able to like worry about because having two things to worry about that's not great. So just kind of especially this year when I'm doing my GCSEs, like making sure that I can like do both things at once and not making it too difficult for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there any way in particular that you kind of take some of that stress out of it or make things a bit easier for yourself?
I like I do have high expectations for myself, obviously, in both areas,
Yeah.
but I think just knowing that either way. It's not the be all and end all. It's not like everything is going to go wrong if one thing goes wrong. Just knowing that I have time, that there's time, and like learning as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, growth mindsets are always a positive thing. For you, what's the number one thing or number one go-to for, self-relaxation or Olivia time?
I think just like chilling, watching a movie maybe or TV show. I think something like that, especially as it's kind of like I'm not saying I get to do it often. So it's really nice and really valuable when I do get to do that.
Yeah. Sometimes things might be great, but you don't get to do them often, but that then makes them a bit more special when they do come around. So small benefits there. And you're well known for the great pink green long cross country socks. What's the story behind them?
My dad, he always wanted to spot us in the fields when we were younger, because obviously there's so many girls and they all go out so fast, especially in like under 11, under 13. And especially as my dad is taking all my photos, trying to spot us always hard. And whilst our club vest is quite recognisable, when we were younger as well, um, just being able to spot us easily. And for people in our family like watching us as well, it became a very big thing. It was like, oh, they're wearing the socks. And then if you're not wearing the socks, oh, where have the socks gone? Um, but I think it's kind of become my thing, definitely. We started ages ago in like 2019 when I was an under 11. So, and a lot of people have um, done it as well. And a lot of people have commented on it. So it's definitely one of the things that makes me most recognizable.
Yeah, definitely. And I absolutely love that. And that is a great idea because it is difficult to spot people. Anyone who's taken photos or spectated knows everyone looks the same when they're packed in a pack running. So no, that's really great. And yeah, hopefully not too many people catch on. Otherwise, might lose some of its benefit there.
You won't be able to spot anyone.
You have to get new colours. And if you won the lottery, what's the first thing you'd do?
Um, as I said, I love traveling. I'd probably travel somewhere. Um, I'd probably, yeah, I'd probably go somewhere with my family or friends. Just take them all somewhere nice.
Lovely.
Treat them to a nice trip. Yeah.
I love that. And what would be the dream destination trip?
I don't know. I think maybe somewhere hot, but I also like doing stuff. Like I can't just sit there. I'm not one of those people who goes on holiday to relax and like sit on the beach. I have to be doing stuff. Like so somewhere where there's a lot to do and there's a lot to take in and experience. I think that's really important.
It's good to know what type of holiday you are, and yeah, I'm definitely with you there. No beach holidays, none of that. No sitting by the pool. That's a definite not fun thing to do at all. For you, what other hobbies do you do outside of running, if there are?
Um, I think especially this year there haven't been a lot of time for that, but I like experiencing new things. So I look into a lot of different things. They change all the time, so I can't pinpoint one. But like I'm always open to trying new things, so that's really important.
To be honest, I asked that a bit wrong, so I'll just ask it again. If you didn't run, what would you do?
I think I I like performing. I quite enjoy that. Like being an actor maybe. I don't know, I that appeals to me. But at the same time I do love researching into different things. Um I like learning new things, so anything about that
Yeah.
would be cool. I'd
That
I'd probably, I mean, I love every sport so much. I love doing different sports. I love trying different sports, even if I'm not great at them. So if I didn't run, I would probably still do something else. But if I didn't do any sport, then that's probably what I do.
I love that. Sounds like great, got a sounds like you've got a great go get it attitude, try new things, do lots of cool stuff. And yeah, that's a really great approach to have to life, I think. And yeah, finally, for anyone listening, what's the number one thing you'd want them to take away from this episode?
The importance of knowing yourself, mentally and physically. The importance of knowing that any setbacks you face aren't going to be like what happens forever, aren't going to be like everything in you, as long as you put the hard work in and continue to work hard and persevere. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. What a great kind of two sentences to close off on, because yeah, a lot of value in those there for sure. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story so far. And you've got an amazing mindset, and it's really great how you're navigating through things, including kind of more challenging times as well. And I think it'd be really great to watch you develop as an athlete over the coming years.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This really helps to get the content out there. And I want to make this podcast the best possible for you. So go follow Fitter, Faster, Happier on Instagram. That's Fitter, Faster, Happier to leave your questions, comments, and feedback, and for updates and guest requests. All the best for the week ahead, guys. Run happy, live happy, be happy.